Hello everybody, and welcome to Ancient Architects. Please subscribe now to get the latest ancient history news and independent research from around the world. Situated around 20 kilometers to the southwest of Sanliurfa in Turkey is a truly incredible site, at least 11,000 years old, and archaeologists are uncovering some truly astonishing finds. This is one of the 12 designated Taş Tepeler sites of Turkey, a Neolithic mound onto which the modern village of Sayburç was constructed in the 1940s. Excavations into the mound began in 2021, and experts have already identified two separate pre-Pottery Neolithic occupation phases. The earliest phase comprises communal structures built directly onto the bedrock, and it's located in the northern part of the modern village, and also on the southeastern edge of a small Roman settlement. The second and later phase contains residential and communal structures and is found 70 metres further to the south. In this video, I'll first be discussing the incredible relief carvings discovered in the oldest part of the site and which I first reported on last year, and then we'll take a look at the excavation 70 metres to the south, where some more fascinating finds have been discovered. The astonishing relief carving, etched onto the bench of an oval communal structure in the older part of the site, is today covered by two modern buildings, one made of stone and one made of concrete. For this reason, only half of the structure has been excavated so far. But what I do know is that the modern houses are set to be demolished, so amazingly, the entire structure will soon be revealed. Before we get too excited though, one thing we have to consider is that this part of Sayburç was once used as a quarry in Roman times, so some of the fantastic archaeology will almost certainly be lost. My friend Dr. Bill Farley recently made a video on Sayburç, and it's on his new channel Archaeology Tube, and it would be great if you could head to his channel, check out his video and subscribe, as he has some really unique and interesting content planned for the future. I've left a link in the description below. The communal building that contains the relief is one of two partially excavated so far. It has a diameter of 11 metres and is cut straight from the limestone bedrock, with stone walls built onto a bench that rises from the floor. The bench is 60 to 80 centimetres high and 60 centimetres wide. There are also a number of 40 centimetre wide cavities at intervals along the wall, suggesting there were once T-shaped pillars around the edge. These were likely to support the roof of this ancient structure, just like we see at other sites like Göbekli Tepe in Karahan Tepe. The image is carved onto the inner face of the bench, and this decoration, as well as the size of the enclosure and the structural features, suggest that this was once a place for special gatherings, a so-called special purpose structure. A new paper was released in the journal Antiquity in December 2022, titled The Sayburç Reliefs, a narrative scene from the Neolithic, written by Eylem Özdegan from Istanbul University. I've linked the paper in the description below if you wish to download it. In the paper, the author discusses the details of the incredible carving. 5 figures are represented side by side in a 0.7 to 0.9 by 3.7 metre panel of art, and we can see 2 specific scenes. We see a male figure in high relief and another man and 3 animals carved in flat relief. The way the 2 scenes are portrayed likely implies they're related, both being part of one story. The flat relief carvings have all been portrayed in a side view, but the man in high relief faces the room, staring into the interior, and it is reminiscent of the famous Earthaman statue. The figure is holding his phallus in his right hand, and it's worth noting that phallic statues are common in the pre-Pottery Neolithic, such as this one that was found at Göbekli Tepe. The figure at Sayburç has rounded protrusions on the upper end of the legs, and they appear to be the knees, as if the figure is bent forward while sitting. The head is damaged, but we can see a round face, large ears, bulging eyes and thick lips. He has a triangular or chevron-like pattern around the neck, maybe implying a necklace, neckband or collar. And we also see this on Urfaman, as well as on the anthropomorphic T-shaped pillars of Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe. The two leopards either side are carved in profile, facing the man with mouths open and teeth visible. They both have long tails curling up towards their bodies. As we can see, the leopard on the left has a phallus, but the one on the right does not, possibly indicating male and female. To the left of this scene we see a second human figure, another male with a phallus-shaped extension on the abdomen. He's in a squatting position, with his back turned towards the other scene. Interestingly, his raised open left hand has 6 fingers, something also seen on an anthropomorphic pillar at Karahan Tepe, and the figure is holding either a snake, rattle, or maybe a sling used in hunting. The man is facing an aurochs or a bull, portrayed from the side, but the head is depicted as if from above, and that's because both horns are visible. This distorted perspective is comparable to the art at other prehistoric sites, and such a portrayal must have been deliberate, to emphasise the dangerous horns of the animal, very much in a similar way to how the teeth of the leopards are shown. As stated, the full extent of the communal structure is yet to be excavated, and there could well be more scenes carved onto the bench as it continues around the enclosure. We know that in theme and style these are Neolithic. Phalluses are the only elements identifying the sex of the figures, and we can see there is a strong emphasis placed on the predatory and aggressive aspects of the animal world, again a common theme in Neolithic art. The main figure that looks into the enclosure certainly has similar characteristics to other human sculptures and carvings, for example Urfaman, and various anthropomorphic T-shaped pillars. The leopard and bull reliefs are also similar to how these animals are portrayed at Göbekli Tepe, linking the two sites together. The difference with Sayburç, though, is that the figures form a narrative. We have 2 individual scenes that look to be related to each other, and the aggressive animal to human relationship is clearly important. There are also scenes on pillars at Göbekli Tepe with humans and animals together, and there are of course various statues at Karahan Tepe that show humans carrying animals on their backs, not to mention the famous composite statue from Navali Chori. But at Sayburç, the horizontal orientation is unique, and it does create a different effect, like the people were portraying a specific narrative. The people in the scenes were likely specific characters, whether gods, heroes, ancestors or past leaders, they were clearly people of note. It looks like a progressing scene, like a special event, belief, myth or story is being told. Some speculate it could represent the confident power of humans rising against the powers of nature, which may be fitting because the pre-Pottery Neolithic was certainly a time of major societal change from the more nomadic lifestyle of hunting and gathering to a settled lifestyle and the beginning of agriculture and domestication. As stated in the paper, in oral traditions, rituals and strong symbolic elements form the foundation of the ideologies that shape society beyond spirituality. Klaus Schmidt interpreted the powerful symbols of Göbekli Tepe as a connection point for memory in a changing world. Therefore, the Sayburç reliefs could be seen in the same light, the reflection of a collective memory that kept the values of its community alive. So, that's a brief look at this exquisite carving in the northern part of the site, but now let's take a look at the southern part. As you can see, excavations have uncovered enclosures, and they have unusual shapes and interconnecting walls. They've been described as oval in plan, but often with straight walls and wide angles. The structures were built directly onto the sloping bedrock, but were adjoined together, similar to what we see with the residential structures at Göbekli Tepe and also at later sites like Çatalhöyük. This may be the reason for their irregular shapes, because structures were added to existing ones over time. There was no specific master plan in mind. They're believed to be residential in nature, and that's because of their size and associated finds. But larger communal structures have also been found close by, oval in plan, but again with straight walls and wide angles. At Sayburç we also find the famous T-shaped pillars, and I believe that these pillars were primarily to support the roofs, being structural elements of a settlement. The structural interpretation is bolstered by the fact that at Sayburç the heights of the pillars are found to be at the same level as the tops of the walls. But how the T-shaped pillars were used does seem to vary. We sometimes find them inside enclosures, sometimes only one, and not always in the middle but towards one side. We also sometimes find two pillars parallel to a wall, and sometimes they are inside the wall itself. Some of them have holes bored into them, and sometimes we see crude animals etched onto them, but not always. This example doesn't look like the snarling wild beasts we see on the pillars of Göbekli Tepe, but maybe more like a domesticated animal. So, in terms of their form, positioning and decoration, there is certainly no specific standard in T-shaped pillars. We also find large stones inside enclosures on one side, positioned opposite each other to form a niche. Their purpose remains unknown. But we can also find very large pillars in small spaces as well. This example is clearly anthropomorphic, again with the V-shaped collar or necklace, arms pointed towards the navel, and also an animal skin loincloth, showing that sometimes stone pillars may have been more about symbolism and less about their use as architectural supports. This pillar, although broken, is very similar to one found in a rectangular enclosure at Karahan Tepe. Right now it is too early to know how this area would have looked, i.e. the overall layout, how the buildings are joined, how you entered each structure, the form of the roofs and so on. But this will become clearer with more excavations in the future. It must also be noted that this is a very difficult site to excavate, because not only do we find two phases of occupation in the Pre-Pottery Neolithic, we also know the earlier archaeology was disrupted by Roman occupation and quarrying. Then there is the building, digging and day-to-day living in the modern village. Recently dug pits are a common sight, disturbances from digging foundations and so on. Whilst excavating the southern end of Sayburç, archaeologists also found an area that was used as a cemetery, but sadly not pre-Pottery Neolithic in age. This cemetery was dug much later, and the grave sites have destroyed a lot of the archaeology underneath. Looking at the fill of the site, and there are some early indications the structures were deliberately filled in, just like we've also seen at Karahan Tepe and as shown in my last video on Çakmak Tepe, although this is yet to be confirmed. Apart from the architecture itself, at Sayburç we also find stone tools, pestles and mortars, basalt grinding stones and other domestic implements inside the enclosures, some of which are made to a very high standard. We also find these raised levels against the walls, formed by cutting the bedrock, and they do have an orderly yet irregular appearance. Maybe these were areas for food preparation, as some domestic objects were found on top, sometimes purposefully placed upside down, maybe indicating the structures were decommissioned and abandoned. So far, no storage areas or hearths have been discovered, but it is possible that food was cooked on the roofs of the houses, or maybe a specific cooking area in the settlement is yet to be discovered. So now at the end of 2022, this is what we know about the Taş Tepeler site of Sayburç, yet another important and incredible site of pre-pottery Neolithic Turkey. and like Chakmak Tepe, Harbetsavan Tepesi and Karahan Tepe, we've really only just scratched the surface. There really is so much we'll learn in the coming years, and I for one can't wait. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Ancient Architects. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel, please like the video, and please leave a comment below. Thank you very much.